The first time I felt it, I didn't call it jealousy. I told myself it was annoyance, or protectiveness, or just one of those irrational moods you get when something in your life feels slightly off, but you can't quite name why. It happened on a Thursday night in my kitchen with a half-empty bottle of red wine between Noah and me. He was leaning against the counter, laughing at something on his phone, not hiding it, not acting suspicious, just smiling in that easy way he always did, like whatever was on the screen was harmless and light. And for some reason, my chest tightened. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to sound casual, like I didn't already hate the fact that I was asking. Noah glanced up. "Huh? Oh, just Emma." There it was. The name. The girl. Emma had entered our orbit about a month earlier. A friend. Blonde, effortlessly pretty, the kind of woman people described as warm and easy to be around. The kind of woman you could picture fitting neatly into someone's life without disrupting anything. "She sent you a meme?" I asked. He smiled. "Yeah, about that terrible bar we went to last weekend." I nodded, took a sip of wine that tasted suddenly sour, and told myself to let it go. Noah was single. I was single. We were just roommates. Friends. Best friends, even. So why did it feel like something was slipping through my fingers? I'd known Noah for 6 years. We met at work, bonded over mutual hatred for early meetings and bad coffee, and somehow slid into each other's lives without any friction. Same humor, same routines, same unspoken understanding that whatever was happening between us didn't need a label. At least, that's what I told myself. We cooked together, watched dumb reality TV together, sometimes fell asleep on opposite ends of the couch, legs tangled, pretending it meant nothing. I dated here and there. He did too, but never felt serious. Not until Emma. Emma stayed for brunch one Sunday. Just coffee at first, then pancakes, then her shoes by the door like they belonged there. She laughed at Noah's jokes, touched his arm when she talked, made herself comfortable in a space that had always felt like ours. I watched from the sink, my hands submerged in warm water, my jaw tight. "You okay?" Noah asked later when she went to the bathroom. "Yeah," I said too quickly. "Why?" "You're quiet." I shrugged. "Just tired." It was easier than saying, "I don't like the way she fits here." That night, after she left, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every small moment like it mattered more than it should. The way Noah looked at her, the way he smiled differently, softer, like he was letting himself be seen. And the worst part, I wasn't even sure what I was jealous of. I told myself I wanted him to be happy, that if he liked her, that was good, normal, healthy. I told myself my reaction was just fear of change, fear of losing my closest friend. But when I imagined them together, really imagined it, there was a sharp, unmistakable ache that had nothing to do with friendship. The thought scared me enough that I rolled onto my side and forced my eyes shut. The next few weeks only made it worse. Emma started coming around more. Casual. Unplanned. Noah never asked if it was okay. He didn't need to. I kept telling him it was fine, that I liked her, that she was great, and she was. That almost made it unbearable. One evening, I came home early and found them on the couch, knees touching, sharing headphones. They looked up in sync, surprised but not guilty, like there was nothing to hide. "Hey," Noah said, "you're home early." "Meeting got canceled," I replied, forcing a smile. Emma smiled too. Warm, polite, unthreatening. And I hated myself for the wave of irritation that followed. Later, when she left, Noah lingered in the living room while I pretended to clean. "You don't have to be cool about this," he said carefully. I froze. "About what?" He hesitated. "If you're uncomfortable with her being here so much." "No," I said too fast again. "It's fine." Seriously. He studied me, like he was trying to see past the words. "Okay," he said slowly. "I just wanted to check." When he went to his room, I stayed where I was, staring at the empty space on the couch. I realized then that I wasn't afraid of losing Noah to a girl. I was afraid of losing something I'd never admitted I wanted. And that realization sat heavy in my chest, quiet but undeniable, like a truth waiting patiently for me to catch up. The kind of truth that doesn't go away once you notice it. I try to fix it by doing what I always did when something felt too close for comfort. I pulled back. Not dramatically, Not enough for Noah to call me out on it. Just little things. I stayed late at work more often. Started saying I was tired when he asked if I wanted to watch something. Put in my headphones while cooking, even when we were in the same room. It felt safer that way. Duller. Like wrapping a fragile thing in layers, so I wouldn't have to look at it directly. But distance has a way of clarifying things instead of hiding them. One night, Noah knocked on my door. Not urgent, not annoyed. Just him. "You alive in there?" he asked. I opened the door halfway. "Yeah." He leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "You've been weird." I almost laughed. "Weird how?" "You're never around anymore," he said. "And when you are, it feels like you're somewhere else." I searched his face for accusation and didn't find it. Just concern. That somehow made it worse. "I'm fine," I said. "Just busy." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on me a second longer than necessary. "Okay, just checking." When he walked away, the quiet that followed felt heavier than the conversation itself. Emma came over less after that. Not because anything ended. Noah still saw her, but because he started going to her place instead. I told myself that should be a relief. It wasn't. The apartment felt wrong without him there in the evenings. Too quiet, too clean, like a place waiting for someone who wasn't coming home. One Friday, he texted to say he'd be out late. Dinner with Emma. I stared at the message longer than I should have, then tossed my phone onto the couch like it had offended me. I poured myself a drink, then another. Not enough to get drunk, just enough to loosen the knot in my chest. When he finally came home, it was after midnight. I was still up sitting on the couch, TV on, but muted. He stopped when he saw me. "Hey, you didn't have to wait up." "I wasn't," I said, even though it was a lie. He sat down anyway, a careful distance away. There was a faint smile on his face, the kind that lingers after a good night. I hated how much I noticed it. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. Then, without meaning to, "Did you have fun?" He hesitated just a beat. "Yeah, we did." Something in his tone, gentle, measured, made my chest ache. "That's good," I said, and I meant it. I think. At least, part of me did. The breaking point came on a Sunday morning. I walked into the kitchen to find Noah on the phone, pacing, voice low. I caught the end of it as I reached for the coffee. "I know," he said quietly. "I'm trying. Yeah. Okay, I'll call you later." He hung up and leaned back against the counter, exhaling. "Everything okay?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Emma thinks I'm holding back." I froze. "Holding back how?" He ran a hand through his hair. "She says I'm here physically, but not all the way there. Like I'm distracted. Like there's something else I'm not saying." The room felt too small all of a sudden. "And is she wrong?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. Noah's eyes met mine. Something unreadable passed between us, recognition. Maybe, or relief, or fear. "I don't know," he said honestly. "That's the problem." We stood there, neither of us moving, the air thick with everything we weren't saying. I realized then that whatever this was between us wasn't going to stay buried much longer. Not with Emma asking the right questions. Not with Noah starting to listen to them. And not with me pretending I didn't already know the answers. When he finally left the kitchen, I stayed behind, staring at my untouched coffee, heart racing not with jealousy this time, but with something clearer. I wasn't confused anymore. I was just scared of what admitting it would change. That conversation lodged itself in my head and refused to leave. For days afterward, I replayed Noah's words like a song stuck on repeat. Holding back. Distracted. Not all the way there. Emma had sensed it, named it, and handed it back to him like a mirror he couldn't ignore anymore. And the worst part was knowing she wasn't wrong. I started noticing things I trained myself not to. How Noah lingered in the doorway of my room when he thought I wasn't paying attention. How his texts to me came faster, more thoughtful, even when he was supposedly busy with her. How, when we sat on opposite ends of the couch, his foot always drifted closer to mine without either of us acknowledging it. We were orbiting something dangerous, pretending gravity didn't exist. One night, we cooked dinner together for the first time in weeks. Nothing fancy: pasta, garlic bread, the comfort stuff we defaulted to when life felt heavy. Our shoulders brushed at the stove. He handed me a spoon without looking. It all felt painfully familiar. "Emma's out of town this weekend," he said casually, like it meant nothing. Oh, I replied. Okay. Silence stretched between us, dense and loaded. I told her I needed some space, he added. I turned to look at him then. Really look at him. For? I asked. He swallowed. To think. That night, sleep didn't come easily. I lay in bed, listening to the sounds of the apartment, the refrigerator humming, distant traffic, Noah moving around in his room. Every noise felt amplified, like my body was bracing for something I couldn't predict. Around 2 a.m., there was a soft knock on my door. I didn't answer right away. My heart was already racing, like it knew. Miles! Noah's voice was quiet. Careful. I sat up. Yeah. Can I come in? There was a pause where I could have said no. Where I should have said no. Instead, I said okay. He stood just inside the doorway, hands shoved into his pockets, not meeting my eyes at first. The room felt too small with him in it, charged in a way that made my skin buzz. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he said finally. About us. My throat tightened. Us how? He looked up then, really looked at me. Vulnerable. Uncertain. The version of Noah he never showed anyone else. I think I've been lying to myself, he said. And I think you have too. The air felt thin. Every instinct told me to deflect, joke, shut it down before it could hurt. But I was so tired of pretending. I thought I was jealous of Emma, I admitted quietly. Turns out, I wasn't. His breath hitched just barely. I kept telling myself it was about losing you. I continued. But the truth is I was scared of wanting you. The words landed between us, fragile and exposed. Noah didn't move. He didn't rush toward me. He just stood there, eyes locked on mine, like he was afraid the moment might shatter if he breathed too hard. I think, he said slowly, that I've wanted you for a long time. I just didn't know what to do with that. We didn't touch. Not then. We sat on opposite sides of the bed, knees angled toward each other, talking quietly like it was the most important conversation of our lives. Because it was. We talked about confusion, about fear, about all the moments that almost meant something and all the reasons we'd ignored them. Eventually, the words ran out. Noah stood, pausing at the door. I don't want to rush this, he said. I just needed you to know. I nodded. I'm glad you told me. When he left, the room felt different, not emptier, but calmer. Like something had finally been named and set gently on the table between us. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling again. But this time, my chest wasn't tight with jealousy or confusion. It was full of something quieter, relief, and the fragile beginning of truth. The next morning felt different in a way I couldn't immediately explain. Nothing had changed on the surface. Same apartment, same light slanting through the blinds, same quiet hum of the coffee machine starting up in the kitchen. But there was an awareness now, like the air itself had learned something new and was waiting to see what we'd do with it. Noah was already up when I walked out of my room. He stood at the counter, mug in hand, hair still a little messy from sleep. When he looked at me, there was no awkwardness, just a steady, open look that made my chest tighten. Morning, he said. Morning. We moved around each other carefully, not avoiding, not crowding. I poured coffee. He slid a plate of toast toward me, like it was the most natural thing in the world. How'd you sleep? He asked. I considered lying. Decided not to. Better than I expected. He smiled at that. Small. Honest. Yeah, me too. We didn't bring up last night. Not directly, but it was there in the pauses, in the way neither of us checked our phones, in the fact that he didn't mention Emma at all. The weekend stretched out slowly. We ran errands together, side by side in the grocery store like we always had, except now every small thing felt newly charged. Our hands brushed reaching for the same item. He held the door open and waited for me instead of moving ahead. When we sat on the couch to watch a movie, there was space between us but not distance. At one point, I caught him watching me. Not staring, just noticing. What? I asked, half smiling. He shook his head. Nothing. Just thinking. About how easy this feels, he said. Now that we're not pretending. That word hit me softly. Pretending. I nodded. Yeah, I didn't realize how much energy it was taking. That night, we cooked again. Music low, lights dim, the kind of quiet that didn't demand to be filled. When I laughed at something dumb, he said, his hand landed briefly on my lower back natural, instinctive, and neither of us pulled away. We froze for half a second. Then he asked quietly, "Is this okay?" I met his eyes. "Yeah, it is." He let his hand rest there a moment longer, warm and grounding, before stepping back. It wasn't a rush forward. It was a mutual agreement to take the next step without running. On Sunday evening, as the light outside faded into blue, we sat on the balcony with beers we barely drank. "I need to talk to Emma," Noah said eventually. I nodded. "I know. I don't want to hurt her," he added. "She didn't do anything wrong." "I know," I said again. And I meant it. There was no bitterness left, just clarity. He exhaled slowly. "I just wanted you to know that whatever happens next, I am choosing honesty. For once." I looked at him, then really looked at him and felt something settle into place inside my chest. "That's all I want too," I said. We sat there in comfortable silence after that, watching the city lights come on one by one. His shoulder brushed mine, and this time, neither of us moved away. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't a confession. It was quieter than that, and somehow it felt bigger. I realized then that jealousy had never been the point. It had just been the signal, the thing that finally forced me to look at what had always been there. Not fear, not confusion, just two people standing close enough now to finally see each other clearly. Noah talked to Emma on Monday. I knew because he texted me halfway through the day, just a simple dash, "Can we talk tonight?" And my stomach dropped anyway. I spent the rest of the afternoon distracted, rereading emails, pacing my office, convincing myself that whatever happened, at least we'd been honest. At least the truth was out in the open now, where it couldn't quietly rot between us. When I got home, he was already there, sitting at the kitchen table. No phone, no yakit, just him waiting. I set my bag down slowly. "Hey, hey." There was no tension in his voice, but there was weight behind it. The kind that comes after something important has already happened. We sat across from each other, the table suddenly feeling like neutral ground. "How did it go?" I asked. He exhaled, rubbing his hands together once before letting them rest flat on the wood. "Hard, but clear." I nodded, letting him take his time. "I told her I cared about her," he continued, "that none of this was fake. But I also told her I couldn't keep pretending I didn't feel something else. Something I didn't understand yet. And I asked quietly. She was hurt," he said honestly, "but she wasn't blindsided. She said she felt it too. The distance, the distraction, that stung in a strange way, not guilt exactly, but recognition. She asked if it was about you," he added. My breath caught. "I didn't dodge it," he said. "I told her the truth." I swallowed. "Thank you." He met my eyes. "I didn't want to start this whatever this is by hiding again." Nothing changed immediately after that. And somehow, that felt right. We didn't jump into anything. No dramatic declarations. No sudden rewriting of our lives. We just existed differently around each other now. The space between us was intentional instead of forced. When we talked, it was slower, more careful. When we laughed, it came easier, like we weren't bracing for something to break. One night, we ended up back on the couch, the same spot where I'd once watched him with someone else, and convinced myself my jealousy meant nothing. This time, there was no one else. Just the quiet hum of the TV and the soft glow of a lamp. Our knees touched. Neither of us moved. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yeah." "When did you first realize?" he asked. "About me." I thought about it. Really thought. I think. I always knew, I admitted. I just didn't let myself say it out loud until I had something to lose. He nodded slowly. "That tracks. What about you?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "When you stopped being around so much. When I realized how empty the apartment felt without you." That settled something deep in my chest. He shifted slightly, giving me space even as his hand rested between us on the cushion. "Is this okay?" he asked again. He always asked. I covered his hand with mine. "Yeah, it is." The first time he kissed me, it wasn't rushed. It happened a few days later, late at night, after we'd talked ourselves tired. We were standing in the kitchen, lights low, the world narrowed down to the space we shared. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel his breath, steady but deliberate. "Still okay?" he murmured. I nodded. The kiss was gentle, uncertain in the best way, like we were both checking in with each other, even as it happened. It didn't feel like crossing a line. It felt like arriving. Later, alone in my room, I lay awake thinking about how strange it was that something so quiet could change so much. How jealousy had been the wrong word all along. It hadn't been about possession or fear. It had been about recognition, about seeing myself reflected in someone else's happiness and realizing I wanted to be part of it not as a bystander, not as a secret, but as myself. The truth hadn't exploded my life. It had settled into it. And for the first time, that felt like enough. We didn't tell anyone right away. Not because it felt like a secret, but because it felt fragile, like something still settling into its shape. The days after that first kiss were quiet in the best possible way. Mornings came softer. Evenings felt warmer. We moved around each other with a new awareness, one that didn't demand constant reassurance. Sometimes we talked about it. Sometimes we didn't. One night, brushing my teeth side by side, Noah caught my eye in the mirror and smiled. Not big, not excited, just content. That was when it hit me. This wasn't adrenaline. This wasn't infatuation. This was comfort layered with choice. The thing I'd been afraid of losing hadn't disappeared. It had simply changed form. A few weeks later, we finally said it out loud to friends first, then a family. There were questions, some surprise, a few raised eyebrows, but nothing broke. No one walked away. Emma and I never became friends, but we were kind to each other the one time we ran into each other again. There was no bitterness in her eyes, just distance. That felt fair. The strangest part was realizing how long I'd been holding my breath without knowing it. How jealousy had been the only emotion loud enough to cut through my denial. I hadn't been threatened by her. I'd been threatened by the truth. One evening, months later, Noah and I sat on the same couch where all of this had started. Same apartment, same view out the window, different everything else. He leaned back, pulling me with him easily like it was muscle memory already. You know, he said, I used to think jealousy was a bad sign, like it meant something was wrong. I smiled against his shoulder. Me too. But now, he added, I think it was just the first honest thing either of us felt. Later that night, lying in bed with the city quiet outside, I thought back to that first moment in the kitchen, the wine, the phone, the girl I thought I was jealous of. I finally understood it clearly. I hadn't been jealous of her attention. I hadn't been afraid of losing him to someone else. I'd been afraid of wanting him, afraid of what it would say about me, afraid of how much sense it made. Jealousy hadn't been the problem. It had been the invitation, an uncomfortable, unavoidable nudge toward a truth I was already living. I turned onto my side, Noah's breathing steady beside me, and let myself feel it fully, not fear, not doubt, just certainty. And for the first time, I didn't try to explain it away.